Afternoon. National Assembly of Wales is now in session, and I'm sure you'd like to join with me in welcoming members of the Public Accounts Committees from the State of Jersey and Northern Ireland who are here watching in the public gallery this afternoon. Now we move to item 1, which is questions to the First Minister. And question 1 is Elin Jones.
Will the First Minister make a statement on the Government's priorities in relation to promoting the Welsh language?
We continue to deliver the priorities set out in the Bwrw Mlaen policy statement to promote the Welsh language with the aim of seeing the Welsh language thriving in Wales.
I suppose this question would have been quite different had there been no resolution yesterday on the issue of Pantycelyn and the timetable and assurances provided by the university, as you and I had requested last week. So may I ask you, First Minister, for an update on where you are in achieving one of the recommendations of the Roderick Llwyd Morgan report for your government just a few years ago on creating Aberystwyth, Carmarthen and Bangor as 3 strategically important regional towns to promote the Welsh language?
I understand that they're exceptionally important towns, and we're still moving on to progress to Bwrw Mlaen, as we say in Welsh, and it's important that we strengthen the ways in which we do this by using the pilot project in Dyffryn Teifi and see how that can impact on what happens in the towns you mentioned. But very good news, I wrote to the university to say how important it was to have a residential hall where the Welsh language was the main medium of that hall, and I'm pleased to see what has happened as regards the future of the Welsh language within Pantycelyn.
Our language's future is in the hands of our children. What is the government doing to support groups like TRV and the Mudiad Meithrin?
May I congratulate the member on his Welsh, the first time that he's posed a question in Welsh, and exceptionally good Welsh. May I say that the Mudiad Ysgolion Meithrin receives about 3.372 million via various sources within Welsh Government, and that includes over £1 million via the grant it receives through the Welsh in Education Unit, and also the funding available through other sources in education. As regards the TRV groups and also the nursery groups and the opportunities available for parents to access Welsh medium education for their children, that's exceptionally important, not only in those areas where Welsh isn't the community language, but I've seen the impact it has in the areas where the Welsh language is under pressure. And I have seen an increase in the number of parents who wish to ensure that their children not only speak Welsh but use the Welsh language too.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, I'm sure that one of your government's priorities will be to ensure that the Welsh language is used more often in our communities, in our high street stores and in other retail outlets. Now, in the past, companies such as John Lewis have commissioned Welsh classes to encourage staff to use the Welsh language with their customers. In light of this, can you tell us what the Welsh Government is doing to promote this practice and to encourage other businesses across Wales to fund Welsh language courses?
It's exceptionally important that Welsh speakers are able to identify each other. At one point, I wasn't very supportive of the badge, but I've changed my mind since then, because it's exceptionally important in some areas of Wales that you can give people the opportunity to use the language, and one way of doing that is that they know who else can speak Welsh. So we have the usual badge that people are used to, and also the Cymraeg badge that we have as a government, but we must also encourage businesses to wear these badges so that people can use the Welsh language in a totally natural way when they are buying something or dealing with business.
Plans by Powys County Council to close the Welsh language unit at Brecon High School have left many in the community very concerned about the impact that will have on Welsh in the Brecon area. Already parents are deciding to move their children out of Welsh medium education because of a lack of continuum. Whilst the Council have carried out a community impact assessment, it's not clear that they've carried out any detailed research into the effect of this change on the numbers choosing Welsh medium education into the future. What would your expectations be of a county council to carry out such an impact? And would you agree with me that any changes to Welsh medium education provision should increase the number of children who are studying through the medium of Welsh and not decrease the numbers?
Yes, well, each local authority, of course, is required to submit its Welsh in education plans to show how it proposes to increase the use of Welsh and the delivery of Welsh as a medium of education in their particular counties. If there is any attempt by a local authority to restrict the availability of Welsh medium education, particularly at secondary level, that, of course, is something that we will not seek to approve as part of their plans for the future. We know that, for example, in Ysgol y Banau, it's a well-established primary school in the Brecon area. There has to be a way for children to be able to use Welsh as a medium of education, not as a subject, in order for the language to be fully integrated in their educational experience. And I certainly would not be supportive of anything that restricted the availability of Welsh medium education in that part of Powys.
Question 2, John Griffiths.
Will the First Minister make a statement on Welsh Government policy to build regional economies in Wales?
Well, we're working to support jobs and growth in every part of Wales, taking wide-ranging actions to help individuals, communities and businesses. And they include, of course, support for our enterprise zones, the city regions and local growth zones.
First Minister, the South East Wales economy is very important for the Welsh economy as a whole. And obviously we need to develop that economy further, and I'm sure we will. Will you agree with me that the Cardiff Capital Region City bid has great potential in terms of building the South East Wales economy? And could you explain what part Welsh Government will play alongside UK Government and the local authorities to make sure that delivers maximum benefits for South East Wales?
I thank the member for the question. I think you may be referring to the city deal. I mean, in principle, we support the idea. We're short of detail at the moment. We don't know what contribution will be made by UK Government. We don't know what contribution will be expected by Welsh Government, nor indeed from local authorities. So while we remain supportive of the principle, we have yet to see how that would work in detail, but remain open, of course, to discussion. In any economy, infrastructure is important, and that's why, of course, we're moving forward with the Metro, and there will be a statement soon by the Minister explaining what is now being done to move that project forward.
Altaf Hussain.
First Minister, last week your local government minister unveiled your government's plan to reorganise councils in Wales. Many of those councils have been working together to improve their regional economies, particularly in my region, where we have the Swansea Bay Stee region. What assessments have you made of the impact your proposal will have on the Stee regions?
Yes, it will make things better. Local authorities will be able to provide services more robustly than is the case at the moment, and at a lesser cost to the taxpayer. They will still have to work together. It certainly isn't the case that with a new structure of local authorities, there is therefore no need for the new local authorities to work together. That will have to continue in the future. But we see, of course, local authorities that have been individually successful in attracting investment in some parts of Wales, but it's absolutely crucial they continue to work together, both now and when the new structure comes into place.
Rhynab Iorwerth.
Does the First Minister agree that we need to take very pertinent steps through legislation perhaps to ensure that economic prosperity is something that is shared across Wales? North Wales, I don't think, is given the necessary support at present to enable the region to achieve its potential, including the necessary investment in infrastructure. Would the First Minister therefore support the Plaid Cymru pledge to introduce a bill that would provide a clear commitment to develop North Wales as an economic powerhouse?
I don't see legislation doing that, because investors go where they wish to go, not where government tell them to go. But of course government can actually put in place things to tempt investors into parts of Wales. That's happened on Anglesey as regards the new Wilfa and the marine energy and the second largest wind farm in the world, or on Deeside, for example, where a great deal of investment has gone into Deeside, particularly Westbridge Furniture recently in North Wales. And they've come into Wales because of the work that they've been doing in collaboration with Welsh Government. And in the Conwy Valley, we have the Snowdonia services, and so investment is coming into the north. So I don't think that the law would actually change things, but it's important that we do have policies such as the enterprise zones and the Ynys Ynni on Anglesey.
First Minister, if a city deal and city region strategies are going to build the kind of regional economy that's going to benefit everyone in South East Wales, clearly a fast, effective public transport system is going to be critical to that. But it can still take 2 hours to get from public transport from one valley to another, and even an hour to get from the northern suburbs of Cardiff to the city centre, which is clearly a barrier for people who want to reach employment. When the metro proposals are brought forward later in this term, what kind of improvements to travel times do you expect them to be able to achieve?
There are several objectives to the metro. Improvements in travel times, of course, is one objective. Greater comfort in terms of rolling stock for passengers is another. And, of course, in time, the extension of the existing network. Part of the Metro will need to consider bus routes cross valley, because we know that the railway lines in the main run north-south. Those that ran cross valley have long gone. They were taken away in the 1960s. But it's correct to say that we also need to look carefully at cross valley transport and not simply at moving people north to south within the valleys themselves. And that's part of the thinking around the Metro.
We now move to questions to the party leaders. And first this afternoon, we have the Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Archie-Davies.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the RIFU Fund was set up by the Welsh Government, obviously, to create a regeneration fund for town centre regeneration. It was important that the monies were maximised by the sale of government-owned land, in particular valuable government-owned land, and the greater amount that was achieved by that sale, obviously there had been a greater impact for regeneration. Do you believe that the land sales that the Welsh Government undertook some years ago now did reflect good value for money for the Welsh taxpayer?
The answer is that we had concerns about some of the transactions that were taking place. That's why the decision was taken to pause some of those transactions so that an investigation could take place, and that was done.
You will be aware, First Minister, that obviously the Auditor General has been undertaking a very detailed and comprehensive report into this matter, and there have been many interested parties with deep concerns over the way this sale was undertaken, and in particular the return to the taxpayer, some £21 million back to the taxpayer. That report is nearly 12 months overdue now. It was due last year. Can you confirm what action, if any, the Welsh Government have had, or interactions, so to say, with the Audit Office in making their observations known that could have led to a delay in this report coming forward?
No, it's a matter for the Auditor General to produce that report. It's not for government to interfere with that report in any way, and nor would we do that.
Well, it is a fact, First Minister, that the report has been ready, but under the Maxwell principle, when reports are provided, then the people who are mentioned in that report do have the opportunity to comment and correct the record. What I'm seeking from you today, First Minister, given that we are 12 months overdue, I would suggest, in this report's publication, and in particular the evidence that I've had and the conversations I've had with the Auditor General indicate there has been a very long process of cross-referencing people who have been cited in the report. Are you able to confirm that the Welsh Government have not been unduly slow in coming forward and addressing any concerns that might have been put to them? And would you join me in imploring now that that report come forward for full public scrutiny so that we can see exactly whether the taxpayer did get fair value for money on these land sales?
Well, the report will be published when the Auditor General feels the report should be published. It's a matter entirely for the Auditor General, not for us. Yes, he's right to refer to the Maxwell principle, and it's right that that principle is adhered to. But I suspect the answer as to when the report will be published lies with the Auditor General rather than with us as a government. We do not, nor should we, control the timing or the content of that report.
You've held it up.
We now move to the Leader of Plaid Cymru, Leanne Wood.
Diolch Llywyd. First Minister, how many children in Wales live in poverty?
Too many.
First Minister, I would have thought that you would have known the answer to that question. Figures suggest that 31% of children in Wales, that's around 200 children, are living in poverty. Now, we know that the UK government are going to make a further £12 billion worth of welfare cuts. Your party, of course, has said that you want to be tougher than the Tories on welfare. Now, last week's publication of the Communities, Equality and Local Government Committee report argues that you've not done enough to tackle poverty, and also that you've been treating the symptoms rather than the root causes. Do you think that you are doing enough, First Minister, and do you intend to maintain your current approach in your forthcoming budget?
I think she means 200,000 rather than 200. But there are two issues here. First of all, the actions of the UK government, and secondly, as she fairly asks, what we as a government are doing. We did not agree with what has been done with the bedroom tax. We await with some trepidation the proposals that will come forward on the 8th of July. I noted yesterday that the Prime Minister would not rule out cuts to disability benefits, and that is something that should send a chill down the spines of many, many people. For us as a government, there are challenges. We note the report. We will respond to the report, of course, formally, as the process demands. But we have already embarked on a process of examining carefully the anti-poverty programmes that we have in order to see whether they should be made more effective.
First Minister, the Communities and Tackling Poverty budget is worth £240 million of revenue spent every year, and that's not including capital and European funds. Now, we wouldn't call for that budget to be cut, but we do contend that it could be spent more effectively. There are similar regions in England that have reduced poverty much quicker than we've managed to do here in Wales. So it's essential now that you ask yourself why you keep doing the same thing. Now, Plaid Cymru would have abolished zero-hour contracts in the social care sector, for example. We would have abolished priority need in homelessness law, and we would have adopted a no evictions policy for those victims of the bedroom tax. What new measures are you going to introduce to effectively tackle poverty in Wales?
Well, we invest over £323 million towards tackling poverty programmes in Wales. There are two ways of tackling poverty. One, of course, is to make sure that people are supported when they need that support. But secondly, of course, investing in skills. The more skills you can give people, the more chance they have of getting a job and of increasing their own household income. One of the ways we've done that, of course, is through Jobs Growth Wales. Almost 15,000 young people finding a meaningful job opportunity with the help of Welsh Government support. And, of course, we have work within Communities First areas to help people to get those skills that they need in order to, well, I mean, she can... Yeah, I would remind her that her party was in government at one point as well. So I mean, don't try and avoid that as if it was nothing to do with you. But and also, it's not for me to defend the actions of the UK government. It's right to say that with her 3 MPs, there's not an awful lot she can actually do in Parliament. But what we have done is we have introduced Jobs Growth Wales. We see that the attainment gap between those pupils eligible for free school meals is closing, and between those who are on free school meals and those who are not. We are seeing more and more people going into apprenticeships, and we're helping to support the Welsh economy in terms of the jobs that have already been created. On top of that, one of our main manifesto commitments was to double the number of families with access to Flying Start, and we have done just that, and many, many families are accessing that support. But we cannot do it all by ourselves. The UK government also needs to play its part, and it seems to be going in the opposite direction.
We now move to the Leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence, NICE, has issued new guidance to enable GPs to better spot the signs and symptoms of cancer to allow for earlier diagnosis. And NICE believe that should this guidance be followed in England, some 5,000 lives a year will be saved. Is it your expectation that that guidance be followed in Wales?
We wouldn't have inferior guidance in Wales. I think it's fair to point out that our GPs have done exceptionally well in terms of referring people quickly if they suspect cancer. The vast majority of people turn out not to have cancer, but the fact that they've been referred quickly is something that we very much welcome. And if you look at the 31-day and 62-day statistics, it shows that we're doing very well in terms of making sure people have access to the right treatment when they need it. So I would argue that in Wales we're actually ahead because our GPs have, in fairness to them, stepped up to the plate, and they are making sure that people are being referred and being seen as quickly as possible.
Thank you, First Minister. I'm glad that you will upholding the principle of implementing NICE guidance in Wales. It's part of the agreement that your government has with NICE, that it will follow clinical guidance. In that case, if it's your intention it should be so, what assessment will your government make to ensure that GPs will have access to diagnostic services as quickly as they need them? Because that's seen as key in the NICE guidance as making the difference.
Diagnostic waiting times have not been acceptable for some months. They are now moving in the right direction. The waiting times are being reduced, and that is something we intend to see continue over the next few months and beyond.
I appreciate your candour, First Minister. Diagnostic waiting times have not been good, but they are beginning to improve. NICE guidance talks about diagnostics being available within a matter of days and a matter of 2 weeks. That's a long way from where we currently are at present. Will you carry out an assessment? Will you carry out an assessment as to what steps your government will need to take to comply with NICE guidance with regards to access to diagnostics? I hear what you say about treatment, but that's after a diagnosis. If we're to save lives, we need to get access to diagnostics quickly. Will you carry out an assessment to ensure that your government will be able to comply with the new NICE guidance?
We're confident we can comply in terms of the diagnostic waiting times. I think it's worth pointing out that our performance against the 31-day target has improved. 97.2% of people starting treatment within the target time. That's up from 96.7% in March. So the NHS is moving in the right direction in terms of 31-day performance. We're also doing better when compared to England in terms of 62-day performance as well. So when it comes to cancer, we do know that patients in Wales will start their treatment more quickly as a result of what we've put in place.
We now move back to questions on the paper, and question 3 is Sandy Movies.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, will you make a statement on EU investment in Flintshire?
Well, since 2007, EU-funded projects have created 1,200 jobs and over 400 businesses in Flintshire. They've also supported 900 people into work and 2,900 people to gain qualifications, demonstrating the value to Wales and indeed to Flintshire of UK membership of the EU.
Thank you very much indeed. I think those statistics that you just quoted do show exactly what the position is. But all this could be jeopardised if Eurosceptics in the Conservative Party, aided by their friends in the right-wing London press, jeopardise this and have their way. Therefore, First Minister, would you agree with me it's essential that here in Wales we get our message out loud and clear that Wales without Europe would be a poorer place?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Flintshire, it has done very well indeed through EU membership, access to the single market, large employers such as Airbus, and of course the access to training that I've already mentioned. I do not believe that the question of the UK's membership of the EU should be guided by a particularly blinkered form of nationalism that we see coming out of some parts and some parties in London. It should be determined according to what is best for Wales. It is in Wales's interest to remain a member of the 2 unions that we are a member of, and as David Melding has eloquently pointed out in years gone by, you cannot argue to leave one and yet still stay in the other, and that applies whether it's the EU or the UK. And I think his words on that matter are very wise.
Janet Howard?
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer.
No, I'm the presiding officer today.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that, yes. I didn't mean to demote you. First Minister, the Environment Wales project has been awarding European grants throughout Wales to environment projects since 1992. Community groups and volunteers across my region have engaged with these projects. For some, it has been the first tentative steps towards taking over works that have been previously undertaken or not by public bodies. However, the scheme is due to come to an end in September of this year. What alternative streams of funding does your government have in place to continue the good work that Environment Wales has undertaken in Flintshire and across North Wales once it ceases to operate?
Well, funding for Environment Wales isn't stopping. We've put in place new grant funding arrangements. There's no intention for the new arrangements to lead to a reduction in the funding available for voluntary environmental schemes. And I know that the Ministers had constructive meetings with the WCVA, and there is continuing dialogue with officials, so I can put her concerns to rest.
Sir Griffith.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Flintshire, of course, is in a unique position to look eastward for economic growth, but also westward, and many authorities and individuals are a little concerned, perhaps, that the westbound look isn't strong enough. Would you agree with me that Flintshire has great potential in terms of economic growth, but it's important that that growth is disseminated across North Wales and West North Wales, and that would help to create this North Wales powerhouse that we all want to see?
Flintshire, particularly Deeside, has been very prominent in attracting investment, and that is because of the clustering that's happened there with some industries in particular. And Ysmôn Anglesey is now developing energy, and other parts of North Wales looking more to tourism. But no, it's exceptionally important that we realise that Flintshire has been successful in attracting investment, and many people working to the west of the county and on Deeside and in Flintshire as a whole. And yes, it's very important that we ensure that that economic growth is able to spread westwards, and we see indications of that, for example, with the opening of Gwynter Moor, and more so to the west with Surf Snowdonia and all the developments on Anglesey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, will you make a statement on the mechanisms that are in place to review the work of senior management at local health boards?
Yes, they're held to account through an established performance management framework and other mechanisms.
Thank you, First Minister. As you are very aware, the Chief Executive of Betsy Cadwallader has been suspended. The Welsh Government say it is a neutral act and is not connected to the scandal at Tavel Farm. What is a neutral act, First Minister? And given his previous job at Hal Var, we need the confidence in his running of that board, given the controversy and the outcomes that surround the many decisions of restructuring that have happened. And we need to know that that Chief Executive's exercised probity in that role as well as the current role.
Well, the member will be aware there's now an acting Chief Executive at Betsy Cadwallader. There is work to do to rebuild public confidence in the local health board, that much we recognise. And the new acting Chief Executive is an important part of rebuilding that confidence. We cannot pretend that the board finds itself in a position of strength in terms of its past actions, but we believe it will be in a position of strength in the future, given the changes that have occurred, and also the fact that ministers hold the board to very close account. I know that the Deputy Minister is a weekly visitor to meet with the board, and he will, of course, continue to monitor the situation very closely.
Sir Griffith.
First Minister, should managers that fail in their duty receive a six-figure payoff?
Nobody could argue that that is something that anybody could support. Unfortunately, it is not unknown in the public sector, and that is something I'm afraid that sometimes gives some in the public sector a bad name. We've seen, of course, it happen with chief executives in local authorities. We've seen it happen in other areas of the public sector. No, it's much better to have proper performance management so that people are held to account, and that's true not just in local health boards but across the public sector.
Question 5, Janet Finch-Saunders.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the recently published proposals for local government reorganisation in Wales?
Yes, we want better and better value public services.
Thank you. The release of the maps last week have undoubtedly caused anger and dismay to those charged with delivering our vital services across Wales, including the North, with experienced leaders and senior politicians doubting your government's own credibility as to whether you understand local government at all. Wrexham, Welsh ministers have been foolish and rushed, taking people for granted. Ynys Môn, covering populations of around 300,000, would make local democracy remote. Flintshire, mergers alone are not radical enough to cope with the financial pressures, adding that Welsh Labour needs change at the top. I wouldn't disagree, but do you not recognise these concerns, and how are you going to restore some confidence and credibility back into any local government reorganisation in Wales?
If her party had any policy at all with regard to local government, I would take them more seriously. They have lurched from being in favour of reorganisation, except for some authorities that they want to control, now to not being in favour of any kind of reorganisation. Can I ask you this? Education authorities, there are 4 of them still in special measures, including Monmouthshire, the only council they actually run, incidentally, in special measures. We've seen social services departments struggle, because once they lose 1 or 2 people on the sick, they then begin to they struggle. In the last week, I've had businesses, one of which is familiar to him, but I'm not going to mention it, saying to me, the problem we have in Wales is we don't get pre-app advice from planning departments. They're overrun with other applications. They can't give us the kind of advice that we want, but we can get it in England. Well, I'm not prepared for the situation to be better in England. I want the situation to be better in Wales. That's why I want to see local authorities that are properly structured, not strung together on the back of a fag packet by John Redwood, properly structured, and with powers. This is an exciting opportunity for local government to gain the powers that it needs, to shape the communities that local government serves, and to empower local councillors. No wonder the Tories are against it.
First Minister, Aneurin Bevan said that the purpose to winning power is to be able to give it away. Do you agree with me that the reorganisation map gives us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity now to really continue the devolution process and to look at how we actually devolve further power down from the Assembly to give greater empowerment to the new format of councils and regional authorities?
Absolutely right. I mean, the Tories want the Northern Powerhouse, you hear that? But they don't want anything in Wales similar. So there's a certain element of double standards there, which we all expect. The leader of the opposition is going higher and higher, and his voice will become a soprano soon. Now, as far as the point that he makes, he's right. I've spent much of my time arguing for the devolution of power to the people of Wales from London. I cannot then argue that there shouldn't be equal consideration of devolution to local authorities. I want to see local authorities that are robust, that are strong, that have the powers that they need in the future to shape the communities that they serve. The natural tendency of the Conservatives is to remove power from local government, which is what Thatcher did in the 80s. If you don't control it, abolish it. We saw that with the GLC. It's about time the opposition came up with ideas of its own in terms of improving local government in Wales and act as a responsible opposition rather than simply coming in here and creating a shouting match.
Simon Thomas.
Diolch, Llywydd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Turning back to the map that you produced, First Minister, in terms of your vision for local authorities, what's difficult to understand from this map is what happens to many of the consortia and regional partnerships that already exist. For example, ERU, the Education Consortium for Dyfed, also includes Powys and West Glamorgan. Ceredigion is collaborating with Powys on social services, and Powys, of course, in Williams, is to become a single health and local authority jointly. Now, Plaid Cymru's vision actually identifies these things at a regional level and clarifies where the boundaries between the various partnerships and boards and so on exist. Now, your vision doesn't explain that. Will you take this opportunity to tell us what's happening to that regional level if this map is adopted?
Well, first of all, local authorities would have to collaborate. That is the one outcome of the map. But secondly, the plan that Plaid Cymru has proposed for the people of Wales is more expensive. We want to retain 22 chief executives, 22 council leaders, and then to have bodies another tier on top of that. That's bound to cost more money. I don't think that's going to improve things. What exactly would the councils do? Because if education and social services and planning is undertaken on a regional level, what's left, more or less? No, we're not in the same position at all. I welcome the fact that at least Plaid Cymru have presented an idea that's better than the other parties, but I can't see how it improves things or gives better value for money, because all I can see is that it's much more expensive and will create more quangos on the regional level and will retain the local councils. I don't think that that's going to happen, and that money will be saved and that better services will be produced.
First Minister, what economic benefits did the recent Velathon bring to South Wales?
It was a successful event, enjoyed by thousands of visitors to Wales and local participants. It has raised a significant amount for charity, but it is right to say that the organisers need to be far better at organising the event. There will be a full post-event review, and that will, of course, include an assessment of the economic benefits.
Well, First Minister, the first Velothon organised in Berlin, which had similar numbers to the Welsh event, generated €3.5 million for that local community. And I appreciate your answer that it is perhaps a little too early, but you also agree with me clearly the public opinion was divided on the benefits, and I agree lots more organisation will have to be done. There was good news for charities, clearly, and for many businesses in Wales. But the bad news was that many businesses suffered losses, lots more public were inconvenienced, and some communities were literally cut off. My question, Minister, is what compensation could be made available to those businesses in particular who can prove a financial loss?
Well, they would have to pursue the organisers. Now, how they can prove that loss is a matter for them. That would have to be balanced against the economic benefit that the event actually brought, and they would have to prove, I suppose, that there was something wrong in some way with the organisation of the event, particularly where the roads were closed appropriately. Now, that's a matter for them to pursue in terms of their legal advice. But if it is always going to be the case that businesses are in some way compensated when major events come to Wales, then where does it stop? Certainly, this is not an event that we organise as government, but it is a matter for individual businesses to take the advice that they see fit.
John Griffiths.
Yes, would you agree with me, First Minister, that the Velothon, along with other big cycling events and the landmark Active Travel Act, is helping to build Wales as a cycling nation, and that has health benefits, quality of life benefits, integrated transport and environmental benefits, as well as some of the economic benefits we've heard about?
Well, absolutely, and the Active Travel Act, of course, was a significant milestone in terms of saying to people that cycling is not just a leisure pursuit, but a viable form of getting to work and to get to work safely. There are many people who would cycle to work, but are not happy, for example, with sharing the road with cars. Some are, some aren't, and how we develop cycle-only lanes and cycle-only paths in the future will be key to making sure that more people are able to cycle. Cycling is undoubtedly popular. It's undoubtedly popular amongst the middle-aged men in Lycra, the mammals as they're called. But it's important, of course, that that popularity continues, and that where there are issues where events have not been organised as well as they should have been, then that doesn't damage the popularity of cycling. It's crucial that in years to come that the Velothon is organised in such a way that people do get more notice and it's organised more effectively in the future.
William Graham.
First Minister, you expressed earlier that organisers of Velothon Wales should have communicated information relating to road closures sooner, which we all agree. In order to make this a much better event and even more popular, could I just inform you that the bus companies, Stagecoach Wales, were only informed of in fact, they were never contacted by the organisers. Pretty incredible, really. They relied on information from local councils. Caerphilly gave information 2 to 3 months before the event, Torfaen and Cardiff the week before. In order to make this a really successful event and can be supported by all, how will you make sure that there's improved communication to all communities and businesses?
I can't dispute what the member has said. I think there are numerous examples of where communication was not as it should have been, and the event organisers have to learn that for the years that are to come. Not enough notice, it's clear, from the reports that I've seen was given to various businesses and organisations, and you've mentioned one example there. We will work with the Velothon in future years to make sure that these problems don't occur in the future and that sufficient notice is given when the event returns to Wales.
Diolch, Llywydd. Can I say I broadly welcome the Velothon, and I'm pleased that it passed through my constituency, and certainly it brought the benefits of active travel to many people, and it was an opportunity to showcase Caerphilly to a much wider audience. Nevertheless, like other members, I was contacted by a number of constituents recently unhappy with the extensive road closure. So, First Minister, do you agree with me that if the Velothon is to pass through Caerphilly next year, there needs to be much better and earlier communication between the organisers and local residents and businesses, perhaps beginning as early as the beginning of 2006, and perhaps they should explore issues such as rolling rather than blanket road closures?
Absolutely right. It's never the case that it's too early to start consultation and too early to start working with businesses who are affected by an event such as this, and it's absolutely crucial the lessons, harsh lessons, that have been taught this time around are taken forward next year, and that the problems that have occurred this year are not repeated.
Rhun ap Iorwerth.
Diolch, Llywydd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Being cyclist myself, I think we can all agree that we that we support, the development of events such as the Velathon in Wales. But is the First Minister aware that the existence of the Velathon run by a French company did have a detrimental effect on a huge sporting event in Wales, which is a Tap Eryri, whose numbers were dramatically reduced because of the Velathon taking place at the same weekend? And does on the weekend before, and does the First Minister accept that there are Welsh companies that can organise events such as the Velathon equally as good as large multinational companies?
I think that much is true. I would always say that Welsh companies are the equal of any when it comes to organising events such as this. And as I say, there are lessons to be learned. We do try to ensure that there is sufficient distance between events, but sometimes that's not possible. And I welcome the member's declaration that he's a keen cyclist, though I don't look forward to the day when he turns up in this chamber in Lycra.
No. Question 7, Keith Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, what discussions has the Welsh Government had with the UK Government on the National Police Air Service?
Well, of course, this is not a devolved matter, well, not yet, and we haven't had a discussion with the United Kingdom Government on this issue, but it's true to say that we are concerned about how the service will continue in the future.
Thank you. The current plans include one site in North Wales, in Harden, where there will be a helicopter, and one in Cardiff, and one in South Wales, in Cardiff. But if there is any problem or emergency in Liverpool or Manchester, and the same in the south in Bristol or Bath, we would lose both helicopters. Now, last week I went to Pembrey to see the centre there, where the Police and Crime Commissioner 3 years ago spent £1.5 million to build a wonderful site. Now, people tell me that with the national approach, the Dyfed Powys Police will have to pay £800,000 per annum, and there'll be no helicopter there. But if the Police and Crime Commissioner were willing to pay an additional £300,000, we could retain the helicopter at Pembrey, and the rest of Wales would benefit from that too. Would you agree with me?
Well, that's a matter for the Commissioner, of course, but the name of the service is the National Police Air Service. Well, it's not national at all. It's England and Wales, and in my view, you're talking about two nations, not one, but that's quite typical of the way in which they deal with these issues in London. This, of course, wouldn't happen if it was devolved, and once again, Wales isn't being treated fairly and is being treated as some kind of part of England, and that's quite typical of the way in which the current government deals with Wales. But it's true to say there is an option there for the Commissioner, if that is true, to ensure that the service continues, and it's important, of course, that the Commissioner considers it. But once again, we're seeing Wales lose out because of the fact that the police services are not devolved.
Well, thank you. Well, in stating that it will close the base in Rutland, the National Police Air Service says that cover will come from other bases, including Harden. But the North Wales Police told me that there's been poor engagement with forces, police and crime commissioners and regions, and that for high priority calls, the average response time in North Wales will increase from 13 to 18 minutes. Notwithstanding your comments about this not being directly a Welsh Government responsibility, how can or will the Welsh Government engage with the regional workshops the National Police Air Service says it will now carry out, quote, to engage forces and commissioners to better understand how the modelling has been arrived at and to assure forces it is accurate?
Look, this is your party's decision, not mine. Right. We will work, of course, with the Police and Crime Commissioners, of course we will, and the police services, but it's your decision at the end of the day. And if the people of Wales were able to have the level of control over policing that Scotland, Northern Ireland and England gets, this wouldn't have happened. So your party refuses to give those powers to the people of Wales, something that we support. And we have a decision now where Wales is effectively being cut out of the picture, and your party does bear responsibility. Please don't try and make out that somehow it's the fault of the Welsh Government.
Roger Thomas.
I'm very pleased, First Minister, that you're so enthusiastic for the devolution of policing to Wales. That wasn't the response of your minister when I raised this issue some years ago in this chamber, and that wasn't the response of the last Labour government in Westminster either. But would you agree with me that we are seeing in this context, particularly in the context of Dylwyd Police, the fundamental mistake made by the coalition government in introducing police and crime commissioners, where a commissioner is more faithful to his own party's policy than the needs of citizens of Dyfed Powys?
Well, two things. We weren't in favour of police commissioners, and neither are the public. We saw that as regards the turnout for their election. As regards the devolution of policing, may I remind the member that this was part of the Labour Party's manifesto last month to devolve policing to Wales. So things are changing. It's true to say that that wasn't the case some time ago, but things have changed since then. But the fundamental question is this: if there is a call made on the helicopter, who gets the priority, England or Wales? And at the moment there is no answer to that question, and it illustrates once again how important it is that the Wales Police Service should be run from Wales and not from London.
Yeah, will the First Minister provide an update on support for early years provision in Wales?
Yes, we know that early years are a critical time of children's lives. We know that those times are crucially important for long-term development, and that's why we provide free quality childcare for 2 to 3-year-olds through Flying Start, and free quality foundation phase early education for 3 and 4-year-olds.
Well, thank you for that answer, First Minister, and I agree the Flying Start programme has supported many young children and families within some of our most deprived areas here in Wales. Now, as a result, we have seen children benefit and develop, thus increasing their life opportunities. However, you may know that Action for Children has decided to terminate their contract to deliver early years development in 2 such communities in the Upper Avon Valley, citing financial difficulties for doing so, and the local authorities seeking alternative provision. Do you agree with me that any alternative provision should be located within the communities the service is intended to support, and families should not be required to actually catch 2 buses to an alternative site? And if so, will you ensure that Welsh Government view is made clear to local authorities?
Well, I can make it absolutely clear that where there is a need to change the provider of childcare, it cannot be in anyone's interest that childcare is provided further away. The whole point of the provision of childcare as part of Flying Start is to make it as accessible as possible. And if people have to, people face an expensive and laborious journey on public transport, they will not use those childcare facilities. So yes, I think it's important to state we would want to see childcare provision in the communities that they are meant to serve. I can say that there's no intention to end childcare provision in Croesero and Glencorrwg. There are options, I understand, that the Council is looking at the moment, but it will clearly be absolutely essential that the childcare provision continues in those communities in the future.
Darren Miller.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the early years, of course, are a crucial part of a child's development, and schools have a significant role to play in that development. In my own constituency, in Llanbedr, Dyffryn Clwyd, there is a school which is delivering excellent standards of education, but unfortunately, Denbighshire County Council is seeking to close that school. They've now embarked upon a second consultation. The first consultation resulted in a referral to the Minister. The Minister intervened in order to secure the future of that school, but the local authority, within days of that announcement, announced that it would seek a second consultation to close. What consideration do you think that local authorities and others should have in respect of the psychological and emotional impact of second consultations on school closure for the children in those schools, given the potential impact on their development?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the situation that the member outlines. Well, it's clearly important that local authorities are able to take communities with them. If they consult on proposals that are no different from the original proposals, and I don't know what the new proposals look like, I need to state that, then clearly it will be more difficult for them to explain why they have done that. Now, I've not seen the second consultation document. What is clear, though, that there needs to be a solution that is to the satisfaction of the local community.
Peter Black.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, can I endorse David Rees's plea that the Flying Start provision in Croesero and Glencorrwg remains in that community? However, there are concerns about the way that Neath Talbot Council are handling the commissioning of this particular service. Action for Children have effectively, will effectively be terminating that service in less than a month's time. And nobody knows, the parents or the staff know what is going to replace it or when it is going to be replaced. Action for Children face redundancy payments of about £30,000, and yet the council do not seem to be coming forward with alternative provision which parents can rely on and which those staff may well be transferred to. Could I ask you, as a matter of urgency, to work with the relevant minister to ensure that the commissioning arrangements in the Talbot Council for this particular service is fit for purpose, and that both parents and staff receive some certainty before that service finishes at the end of the school term?
I think the service finishes officially at the end of August, but yeah, at the end of the school term as far as the children are concerned. Absolutely essential that the service continues in the community, and absolutely essential that there is as little delay as possible in procuring a new service. I'm sure the Council are aware of the challenges that are faced, and I would obviously urge the Council to put new provision in place as quickly as possible. I understand they have committed to updating parents as quickly as possible, and they are moving forward with alternative arrangements, but clearly the last thing anybody wants to see is a gap between service provision arrangements or indeed a significant geographical move for that provision as well.
Thank you, First Minister.